stuff, but we have Public Auditor BJ Cruz, who just released an audit on the COVID-19 payroll expenses on the government of Guam. Good morning, Public Auditor.
Good morning, Chris.
Your nephew Josh gave you a shout out a little while ago. I don't know if you heard that.
No, I was driving in.
So I guess I just kind of want to key in, and we'll just jump right ahead to the release that you had. And this was specifically dealing with, in the audit, you identified unclassified employees, including department and agency heads and certain elected officials who received COVID-19 related compensation as part of the differential pay policy. And these next couple sentences, some eyebrow raisers. This would have been in violation of Title IV, Chapter 6, Guam Code Annotated, which prohibits bonus payments for unclassified employees. However, federal appropriations allowed the governor to enforce a differential pay policy. There were 54 elected and appointed officials who received a total of $176,000 in COVID-related compensation. So I guess just off the bat, which one is it? Is it illegal or was it legal to pay these elected and appointed department and agency heads and unclassified employees?
It could be either, and we've referred it to the Attorney General. Before you were born, when I was working at the governor's office in '76 and we had Typhoon Pamela, we were given a huge grant. Are you still there?
I'm here.
I can't. Yeah, okay. We were given a huge grant to assist the people after Typhoon Pamela. And Doris Brooks was the BBMR director at the time. And one of the employees in, I think it was Department of Labor, sued because they felt that their compensation should have followed a different rule as opposed to local legislation. And it was taken up to the District Court of Guam in the Wong versus Kamina case. And the decision at that time in 77, 78, was that if there is a federal grant to the governor that does not go into the legislature for an appropriation, that the governor can direct its expenditure by executive order. And this was CARES fund that was given directly to the governor's office, 118 million. And it was their determination of the governor's office to pay it out under this differential pay executive order. And so there's the law here and the executive order, and we just pointed out and we're referring it to the Attorney General.
And I believe, I mean, it was pretty deep in the report, but did you get any kind of inclination one way or another what the Attorney General planned to do? Because I saw that he actually paid a couple of his employees the COVID differential pay. So, yeah,
no, they were working during that period and did get compensation for whatever reason, I don't know, but they got differential pay, and so it'll be up to them to make the legal opinion on whether or not this was or wasn't. And it may take a lawsuit again to bring it to the 21st century.
But I'm just kind of assuming if the AG paid a few of his employees this COVID differential pay, that would mean he probably supports the idea of it, maybe. Or do you think it's apples and oranges with the unclassified and elected?
Well, he will have to make that determination. I don't want to speak for him. We just pointed it out in our audit, and we're leaving it to him and courts to make the final determination as to how it's going to be treated in 2021.
Well, let me just ask you to speak for you, and let me just say, was this justified in your opinion? Did these unclassified directors, deputy directors for the most part, political hires, did they deserve to get paid that COVID-19 differential pay?
As I understand it, there was a cabinet meeting and there was a request for volunteers. They weren't voluntold, but they were volunteers to assist in the isolate. I mean, in the quarantine hotels, and so some of them did get exposed to all kinds of different things. So that's something that in the differential pay, you can, you know, whether or not that's the 10% or 15% or the 25%, but they were doing additional work. And I don't find that as egregious as some of the other findings that we made.
What findings were more egregious than people who volunteered for duty and then got paid extra for it?
Well, GPA and GWA, they're making the double pay and ignoring the executive order. And in fact, the odd thing was at GPA, a group of them met, a committee met on the 12th of March and passed a new pandemic compensation amendment to their personnel rules and regulations. But we found that they ignored even their own determinations on the 2 days before the emergency was declared. I mean, and they did that on their own and then just ignored it on their own, which is really problematic to me. So, and GWA had a meeting, and then supposedly they did reach out to Ed Byrne, though I understand Mr. Byrne doesn't recall them reaching out to him, but they made the determination that they were going to do it also. And so those are fairly substantial, and you can see in the report,
right,
though we don't list names, we list positions, and we listed those towards the end of the report of all the persons' titles and the amounts of money that they received.
And I'm guessing you're not team double pay.
I'm neither. I'm just reporting what we found.
Right. But I mean, going back to, because I think it's really interesting to see this audit and the findings in it, and to go back to when it was actually happening, right? When the hotel quarantine was going down and you had all these directors, deputy directors working over there at the Pac Star. So it's interesting to kind of see this more, because that was an emotionally charged time. People were very, they were pissed about it. You know what I mean? They felt that here we are out of work, and these directors who basically signed up to do whatever the governor says were getting this extra pay. Now that we're kind of removed from that, you're right, it does seem to pale in comparison to what the utilities paid their employees. But what would you say to those people who argue that double pay is the way it's supposed to be?
And you know, by law and by personnel rules, it should have been. And but if you're going to have the federal government pay for it, then it would have to comply with the governor's executive order. To GPA and GWA's credit, they have not asked for reimbursement from the CARES fund to date. I'm not sure what the governor would do in the event that it was presented to her for reimbursement. But the unfortunate part is that $2.5 million is being paid for by the fees that we pay for our utilities. And the ones that went in maybe deserved it, but the ones that teleworked, I have great questions of that, because I mean, even before the governor announced that doing telework, I had already told my staff we were teleworking. I told them that we were very fortunate to be still employed. and that everything that we were doing was to continue. And that was even before the administration made the announcement.
Right. And so I guess on that note, how many people who got the COVID differential pay do you feel didn't deserve it based on the findings?
The ones that I have real problems, real heartache with were the ones that teleworked. The ones that actually went in and did additional time,
Of course.
They may have some reason to, or a leg to stand on, but the ones that didn't, I have real problems with.
Well, thanks for your time, BJ. I did want to ask you though about, and I know you're following this whole hiring people into the government of Guam when they've been convicted of official misconduct as a misdemeanor. Just on its face, do you think that we should hire people back into the government of Guam if they've been convicted of official misdemeanor as government employees?
I really do think that if we as a society are going to say that we believe in rehabilitation and we want people to not go back to a life of crime, then we're really going to have to start accepting some people that have made a mistake at some prior time, and if they've served their time or they've done whatever it was the court wanted them to do and they're rehabilitated and they can serve the government and serve it well, I think we should, especially if they have talents that we could utilize. But if we just want to say, well, you committed a crime, go jump off 2 levels sleep because you'll never be employed by government or private sector or anywhere else, or continue your life of crime, then live with that kind of outcome. But I really do hope that we believe in rehabilitation and the ability of these individuals to provide some kind of, some service to the government.
Right. I mean, I get what you're saying. If someone has a certain skill set or, certain talents in their background, it could maybe justify them being brought back, even though they have that stain on the record. But, with a panel, right? I mean, what message does it send to those people who are applying for the same job who didn't betray the public's trust? I'm not saying that we should throw people off 2 Lovers Point, but I'm saying case by case. You can't always just say, oh, anybody can come back if they're convicted or whatever. I mean, it must have been a pretty crappy panel of applicants.
Yeah, you might. I don't know, but I just really hope that as a society that we encourage rehabilitation and not force these individuals to have no hope.
Thank you, BJ.
Because we have 2 problems. Either they commit suicide or they continue their life of crime. And I would much rather neither of those.
Thank you, BJ.
Okay. Thank you.
Just keep us posted.
Will do.
Public Auditor BJ Cruz. 10 o'clock, we're KUAM FM, Agotnia, Guam. This has been The Link on The Breeze. What a show.
And what's even more interesting, I'm looking ahead to tomorrow. Admittedly, you guys, we actually don't know how many interviews